Australia's most powerful gold mine hides in plain sight, and it breaks almost every rule people think they know about gold. There are no legendary quartz reefs here, no historic shafts chasing visible gold, no nuggets that once drew prospectors into the bush. Instead, the Boddington mine quietly converts fractured ancient intrusions into around $2.5 to $3 billion a year in metal sales, producing more gold than any other mine in the country while simultaneously shipping copper as a serious co-product. It sits in a forgotten sliver of Archean crust buried beneath laterite and forest, and its gold doesn't glitter in veins. It's locked invisibly inside sulphides, threaded through rocks most miners once walked straight past. Boddington isn't just big, it's anomalous, unconventional, and fundamentally at odds with the classic orogenic gold story Australia is famous for. And that contradiction is exactly why it became the nation's richest gold mine. Let's start with why Boddington commands attention long before you even look at a rock. In company reporting, Newmont has indicated that the Boddington mine has generated on the order of 600 to 700 million Australian dollars in revenue per quarter from gold and copper sales during strong operating periods. When that quarterly performance is annualised, it places Boddington in the range of 2.5 to 3 billion Australian dollars per year in metal sales. That number is not derived from spot price speculation or back-calculated commodity values. It is grounded in what the mine has actually sold. This is gross revenue, before operating costs, royalties, sustaining capital and tax, but it captures the sheer economic weight of the deposit. Very few individual mines in Australia move that much value out of the ground each year. Those revenues are underpinned by production volumes that are unmatched nationally. Boddington consistently ranks as Australia's largest gold producer by volume, with annual output typically exceeding 500,000 ounces and in stronger years approaching or surpassing 700,000 ounces of gold. Alongside gold, the mine produces tens of thousands of tons of copper concentrate every year, enough for copper to be a meaningful revenue stream rather than an incidental byproduct. In practical terms, this means Boddington is not just a gold mine with some copper attached. It is a gold-copper operation whose economics are strengthened by having two valuable metals leaving site instead of one. That dual metal output has a profound effect on profitability. Mining is expensive, and modern operations track costs using a metric called all-in sustaining cost, which includes mining, processing, maintenance and ongoing capital. Because Boddington earns revenue from both gold and copper, a portion of those costs is effectively paid for by copper sales. This lowers the effective cost per ounce of gold and makes the operation more resilient to fluctuations in gold production or price. In a country filled with single commodity gold mines, that alone makes Boddington stand out. Given that level of production and revenue, it would be reasonable to expect Boddington to sit on a classic Australian gold deposit, something with prominent quartz veins, historic shafts, and visible gold. That expectation is exactly why the deposit remained undiscovered until the late 20th century. There were no old workings here, no 19th century rush, no shallow quartz reefs to follow. Instead, Boddington lay hidden beneath deep laterite and forest cover in southwest Western Australia, its presence betrayed only by subtle chemical traces in weathered soils. It was discovered through systematic geochemical sampling rather than traditional prospecting, a clue in itself that this was not a normal gold system. To understand why Boddington behaves so differently, you have to look at how the rocks formed over billions of years. The deposit sits within the Saddleback Greenstone Belt, a narrow fault-bounded remnant of Archean volcanic and volcaniclastic rocks surrounded by much older granitic crust. These rocks formed more than 2.7 billion years ago, during a time of intense volcanic activity. Basalts, intermediate volcanic rocks, and volcanic sediments accumulated and were then intruded by multiple pulses of magma. Over time, the entire package was buried, heated and squeezed, undergoing green schist facies metamorphism, which means the rocks recrystallized under heat and pressure without melting. Among the most important intrusions were bodies of diorite. Diorite is an intrusive rock that forms when magma cools beneath the surface, and at Boddington, these diorites became some of the strongest, most mechanically competent rocks in the belt. That strength mattered later, because when the crust was stressed again, these rocks fractured rather than deforming smoothly. Those fractures would eventually become the pathways that allowed mineralizing fluids to move and deposit metals such as gold and copper. The Greenstone Belt did not experience a single mineralizing event. Instead, it was shaped by multiple episodes of deformation and fluid flow over hundreds of millions of years. Early deformation produced ductile shear zones, which are zones where rocks flowed and stretched rather than breaking. These structures helped organise the crust but are largely pre-gold at Boddington. Unlike classic orogenic gold camps, where the main shear zones are the ore hosts, at Boddington they acted more like preparation, setting the stage rather than delivering the prize. The decisive moment came late in the belt's history, when deformation shifted from ductile behaviour to brittle and brittle ductile faulting. Narrow steep faults cut across earlier fabrics and intrusions, creating a network of fractures capable of transmitting fluids efficiently. Around this time, roughly 2.61 billion years ago, a monzogranitic intrusion was emplaced at depth. Although this granite is not heavily mineralised itself, multiple lines of evidence point to it as a major source of heat and metal-bearing fluids. As the intrusion cooled, hot saline fluids rich in gold, copper and other elements were expelled and driven upward along the fault network. When those fluids encountered the fractured diorite bodies and their surrounding rocks, metals were deposited. Gold did not form thick quartz veins. Instead, it was precipitated as extremely fine particles, commonly associated with sulphide minerals such as pyrite and chalcopyrite. Copper was deposited alongside it, locked into the same sulphide assemblages. Quartz was present, but only as thin veinlets rather than dominant lodes. The result was a stockwork system, meaning a dense mesh of small fractures and veinlets that collectively host enormous volumes of metal. This style of mineralization explains almost everything about Boddington's character. It explains why the gold is largely refractory, meaning it is locked inside sulphide minerals and cannot be easily extracted with simple cyanide leaching. It explains why the mine uses flotation to concentrate sulphides, followed by oxidation and leaching to liberate gold. It explains why copper is present in economically significant quantities, and why the deposit carries elements like bismuth and molybdenum that are more typical of intrusion-related systems than classic orogenic gold deposits. It also explains why Boddington has such a large footprint. Instead of narrow veins, mineralization is spread through broad volumes of fractured rock. That allows open-pit mining on a massive scale, feeding a processing plant designed to handle huge tonnages year after year. The geology created not just a gold deposit, but a system robust enough to sustain decades of high-volume production. Even the weathering history of the region played a role. Over the last 30 million years, deep tropical weathering destroyed sulphides near the surface and redistributed gold into lateritic profiles. That process created subtle but extensive geochemical anomalies, which modern explorers were able to detect through systematic sampling. Without that weathering and without modern exploration techniques, Boddington might still be hiding in plain sight today. When you step back and look at the full picture, Boddington's success makes sense. Its billions of dollars in annual revenue are the economic expression of a long, complex geological history. It is Australia's largest gold producer, not because it followed the rules of orogenic gold formation, but because it broke them. Its gold lives in intrusive rocks, rather than quartz reefs. Its copper pays a real share of the bills, and its size reflects the efficiency of a system that concentrated metals repeatedly over deep time. Boddington is proof that the Earth does not need to follow textbook models to create extraordinary mineral wealth, and that sometimes the richest deposits are the ones that look nothing like what you were taught to expect. I hope you found this as interesting as I did, and as always, thanks for watching. Before I end this video, I'd like to give a big shout out to my Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you so much to everyone that helps to support this channel.